Hey everybody, I'm Joseph, and today we're going to be talking about setting an Easter table, a holiday that I really love. And I'm going to give you some, I think, some inspiring ideas of what to do for Easter. And one of the traditions that we have in our household is that we host an Easter egg coloring party. Sometimes it's for friends, sometimes it's for family. But we like to make a really lovely meal and have our family or friends sit down to do some egg coloring. And I often talk about home economics being a shared responsibility of creating a home and maintaining it. Our home is no different. Tony and I often share responsibilities or creative ideas when it comes to entertaining family and friends. And so today we're going to show you a little bit about how we end up planning for a party, this particular Easter party that we're going to host. And hopefully you guys will get some great ideas and maybe even be inspired to host your own gathering yourselves. So typically the process that we go through when we're hosting a party is figuring out what we want it to look like. So Tony and I will typically pick out some different ideas, talk them through, put down some plates to see what coordinates with everything. And for this Easter, I really wanted to do a blue and green theme. So I went to our local fabric store and picked up some different options of fabrics, light blue, teal, and also this fantastic flea market find for this vintage hand embroidered tablecloth, linen tablecloth. So I like these three ideas. What do you think about them?
I really like this fabric.
Okay.
I love the dots and stuff, but
so I love that color too. And I was actually thinking that we have these beautiful embroidered napkins that have both of our last initials on it. And I thought that that would look really good. Let me grab some plates and try that with it. So I picked up these fantastic, again, flea market finds. They're just a light blue bubble glass dish. And I actually picked up these great felt pads to use as placemats. So I would love to try to use them if we can in setting the table. So I do love the way that looks. What do you think?
yeah.
And the bamboo silverware.
Yeah. That looks okay.
Or we could do the embroidered. So this is going to be a little bit more plain looking with, I'm not sure I like that.
I like the placemat with that tablecloth.
You do like it on
Yeah,
there?
because I saw what I'm seeing is just a placemat on this one a lot. So I
Okay.
like this fabric, but I think
this is really pretty. And we're also doing, hang on, let me show. So part of the centerpiece that I'm making for this table is I was inspired by these vintage and antique foil covered German paper mache eggs that are very old timey. And I don't really have a collection of those, although I think I want to start collecting them. So I made some of my own in these shades of blues and greens. And my vision is to sort of stay within that color palette. So these are going to be the centerpiece kind of in this big glass bowl.
yeah, and I think
And the colors work really good with that.
Really good, because you've got that lime green, that green in there.
Okay.
teal, yeah.
So that's gonna
Blue.
be our choice.
Yeah.
And then what about that with some eggs in it? I'm not loving that.
I tried this one. I mean, I like it.
That's
It does go with it, but
what about these? I think that's cute.
yeah.
That's super cute. And we might even be able to
Oh, I love that.
stack that. Okay, so that's sort of what we do every time we have a dinner party. So we've come up with the tablecloth that we want to use, a base place setting, and then we're going to go ahead and set our table. First, we're going to iron all of our linens because we do that every time we entertain. We're going to set the table. Tony's going to work on place settings. I will work on the centerpieces. And then we're going to fill in with the little sections for fresh eggs and the food coloring for dyeing the eggs. For this event, we're actually mixing up doing artificial dyes, but I also made some natural dyes, which are going to give a really beautiful hue to some of the eggs, a little bit more natural and muted that you're going to see in our tablecloth. But still, all of the egg dyes are going to revolve around blue and green. So we're not going to have pink or red or orange. This is going to be a blue and green event. Our menu is going to consist of a beautiful asparagus and creme fraiche tart on a homemade pastry shell, a crisp spring lettuce garnished with white strawberries, and also some amazing deviled quail eggs. While Tony is working on the tablecloth, I wanted to share with you guys how I am making the centerpieces for today's table. So we're gonna have one large centerpiece in the middle because the ends of the tables are gonna need to be used for the egg dye and our hard-boiled eggs. But I thought to add some interest to the table, it would be really cute to use these little colored cut crystal fruit cups and make little nests and put some of the quail eggs in them because we are going to be serving the deviled quail eggs. So I thought that that would be a nice tie-in to use it for decoration as well as what we're having on the menu. So I went and dyed some Excelsior. Excelsior is just a shaved wood packing material, essentially. So it's all natural, and I just using some RIT dye, hot water, and a little bit of vinegar. I soaked these in a big stock pot, and I did a light blue and also a teal color to coordinate with the rest of the table. And our centerpiece is just in this really great big glass footed bowl. And I've made a nest of the dyed Excelsior. And I'm just using different sizes of these foiled eggs that I made. And I'm going to place them in there and stack them up as though it's a nest of eggs. A really simple idea, really cute to do. Doesn't cost a lot of money. It's a great project if you've got kids for them to work on. But it does add a nice impact too to the table. And you just want to vary your sizes. It's okay to stack some larger ones on top of smaller eggs. That's what really gives it some nice visual interest. Actually, I'll put the big one up there. Try not to stack too many colors that are the same near each other. And layer your nest. So don't just make it one layer, build it up. And you'll really have a beautiful centerpiece. There, I think that's plenty. The other thing is these little fruit cups. All I'm going to do is take the Excelsior and almost like literally making a bird's nest, we're just going to, using your fingers, twine this in. I actually used this in the video when we were making fall wreaths last fall. This is the same Excelsior that I used in that wreath making. It was just natural, and I made bird's nests for the wreaths in that. But we've got a nice nest, and I like to really have volume to things that I'm using. So I like to see all of this texture to it, but you want to have enough in there that it actually fills up the cup and makes a really nice presentation. And then you're just gently going to lay your quail eggs on top. Look how beautiful that is. And that's going to go, this is going to get a place marker at everybody's place setting on top of their dish. So when they sit down, this is what they're going to be presented with. So it makes a really nice, thoughtful presentation, and it will make your table really beautiful. We have ironed our tablecloth. And it's important to note, this is a vintage tablecloth that I found at a flea market. So it's not going to be 100% because it's an older tablecloth. There might be a few little stains. This one was in really good condition. So I decided to buy it, and it wasn't that expensive. But, you know, be realistic when you're going to flea markets, that you may not find things that are 100% perfect, but that's sort of the beauty of them. And sometimes your tablecloth, when you're using these vintage ones, they may come a little bit shy of the table. And that's okay for this instance, because we're going to have the placemats on them, and I'm okay with that. If I was just setting a dish right on top of this, I probably would use a longer tablecloth. And one of the things that we noticed when ironing it that I did not notice when buying it is the embroidery was actually never finished. They got everything completed right up until these few flowers. And in one of these flowers was still the pin with the thread in it. So who knows what the story is behind that. But I love the tablecloth, and I think it'll be perfect for this occasion. One of the things that I always like to remind people when you're setting a table, bring your placemats down to the edge of the table so that you have the same look all the way around. Also bring your silverware down to the edge of your placemat along with the rim of your plate. This way it's all cohesive, it all looks the same, everybody's place setting has the same look, you don't have forks up here and down there. So it's a really easy way to be consistent about how you set the table. So these dishes we will actually use for serving the meal. The top bowl will be for the salad, and the bottom will be for the tart and the deviled eggs. But the little nests of eggs, look how beautiful that is. Imagine your guests coming to sit down at your table and it looks like this. These little nests of eggs are really just purely decorative. They'll be removed once we get the event going. This feels very plain to me on the table. So I want to give it a little bit of a rise, but also some interest underneath it, just to kind of catch your eye. So I've got this small little round marble dish that I'm going to set this on top of. It just gives it a little bit of lift off of the table so that you notice it a little bit better. And so we've decided to use these beautiful etched glasses that we have, which are Christoffel. So it's one of our better collection of glassware that we collect, but we do use them when we entertain. That's why we have them. And we're pairing that with sort of an avocado green, mid-century, small little glass. This glass may not actually get used on our table, but it really just adds interest again to invite people to sit down at your table. You want to make it as visually appealing as possible. The very first thing that we do is see things with our eyes. So it's very important to do that. So when we color eggs, we use both brown and white eggs. They both color really beautifully. They give you different shades between the white and the brown, but they will both dye, which gives it a really beautiful textural look to it when they're all colored laying out. And I've created these long boards of our dyeing liquids. So one's gonna go on this end, one's gonna go on this end. And in the antique silver cups are actually the artificial dyes. So we've got a blue, a teal, a green. And in the glassware, we've got the natural dyes. We've got a muddled green, which actually goes really beautiful with this sort of avocado color. We've got blueberry and then also red cabbage. And of course, Easter wouldn't be Easter without some Easter candy. So a really great way to finish off your table to make it look really beautiful. Fill up some little vintage glass cups. I've got some jelly beans here in the colors that coordinate with all of the colors that we're using. I loved these cute little foil blue and green and gold silver bunnies. So they are filled with chocolate. Those will go on the table. And I like to have little conversation pieces when I entertain. So I found these beautiful gold coins that are chocolate coins. So everybody's gonna get one of these hidden underneath their napkin so that it's almost another level of surprise that when they pick up their napkin, they're gonna get a little gold coin. And last, what we're gonna add to our table are some little green dishes and some soup spoons. This is going to be a place that when people are decorating their eggs, they can set any wet eggs to dry on these dishes. And then we've got a whole tray in the kitchen for collecting their eggs. Everybody has their own tray for the eggs that they color. They will actually get to take their own eggs home. And but it just gives a nice clean little spot for them to be able to put their eggs at. So here we have our beautifully presented table for Easter, our Easter egg coloring dinner party. We usually host this earlier in the day versus at dinner time. So about 4 o'clock, our guests will start coming over and we will welcome them to this beautiful, fun activity and have a light, refreshing meal. This is a great way to prepare for Easter. Make a moment out of it. Do something creative, entertain your friends, and get into the spirit of the holiday. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. We're gonna wait for Todd to get on with us. Hey Todd.
Hey, how's it going?
So we have Todd Carr and his partner Carter Harrington with us from Hort and Pott, which is this fantastic little shop and this amazingly beautiful Instagram account in upstate New York. They opened their shop in 2017 and they are known for making these beautiful botanicals and foraged wreaths. And for Easter, Todd created the most amazing speckled eggs. As I really think they're sort of heirloom decoration. These are things that you can keep for years and pass down to your family. And also the way that I discovered them, which I love, is that I love anything that's stone or concrete, and they make these amazing pressed leaf concrete, almost dish-like things. And that's how I found them. And I bought a couple of them for some friends and have been following them ever since. So welcome with us, Todd.
Hey, Joseph.
Happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
So I am interested to find out a little bit about you. In doing some research about you, I discovered that you were actually a senior editor at Martha Stewart. And then what sort of happened after that? How did you come about getting your shop?
Yeah, I was only there for a year, and I was the senior garden editor there. And I was laid off when she sold the company in the magazine. And then my partner at the time, Carter, we were living in Brooklyn in the Navy Yard, and he actually lost his job too. And I had some friends up here in the Catskills, and we decided just to leave the city and get out for the summer, just to, in between, try to figure things out. We spent a summer here, and then we found the Red House, which I'm in now, is a little red house in Oak Hill, and we bought that, and didn't really have a job or a plan. And I had pop-up shops in the past, and we decided to open up a little shop up here in Oak Hill in the middle of nowhere, it seems, and it's worked out, and we love it up here.
Well, you can definitely tell that you love what you do and you put your heart and soul into it, because your work is absolutely beautiful, and I really do admire it. And I, in looking at your site, you got some really beautiful write-ups in House Beautiful and Country Living, I think.
Yep, Better Homes and Gardens. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So, for me, Easter is all about traditions. I'm sure it is for you as well. I every year pretty much have sort of reinvented what my mom used to do. So for us, for Easter was always about having these just beautiful, huge, enormous Easter baskets chock full of chocolate with wrapped with cellophane and all these little Easter gifts kind of surrounding it. And we would do an indoor Easter egg hunt. And so I've always kept those traditions. I've sort of modernized them a little bit and kind of made them my own. And this was one way for us to do it, was to invite our friends in before Easter and actually create all of our eggs. Do you and Carter have any traditions that you guys have started for yourselves?
Well, the Easter egg tree is something that I love doing. Growing up, my mom always had, she used to take sticks from the yard and paint them bright white and put them in a pot with sand, and she'd hand blow, the real eggs and hang them with ribbon and pastel colors. And we've kind of taken that tradition. I'll use now pussy willows instead of just branches, and there's the native pussy willow up here is a Salix discolor, and it's got more of a branching habit, so you can really hang the eggs on them. Mm-hmm. And we've switched to wooden eggs, just so that they'll last from year to year. They're not so delicate. Mm-hmm. Although we do blow the eggs still. Carter actually blows them for our nests. So I make these woven nests as well. Start them, in the spring, and Carter blows those eggs. So those are real eggs, but for the tree, so they're not, if they fall off, they're not going to break. So that's why we switched to the wooden eggs.
And you really are like a true forager. I mean, you go out into the fields behind your home and into your gardens and cut this stuff down and create these beautiful things.
I'm always keeping an eye out throughout the seasons of what's coming up, what's going on in the gardens, in the woods. So I'm always very aware of the materials that are on hand and in nature. Mm-hmm. And I do it, ethically. I kind of make sure that I'm not pruning too much or taking too much off a plant or taking too much moss from a particular area, so I can go back year after year and still harvest a little bit there. Yeah. Don't want to deplete it.
Moss is my number one favorite thing in my whole entire life, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
And so, I often tell my audience that, when I entertain, I rarely, even when I did weddings and stuff, I rarely would go to floral markets and get, store-bought flowers. I used to plant and cultivate my own gardens, mostly perennials and flowers. And I would always do all my own flowers from my gardens. And so when I entertain privately for myself, I really pick things around my house. And just like you, as the seasons change, I may cut things, put them aside, keep them for future use. But I love to tell people that you don't really have to go out and spend a fortune when you want to entertain. You can, even if you live in an urban area, go outside and really look at the shapes and the textures of things and cut them, and sometimes just the simplest greens make the most beautiful presentation on a table. So
No, exactly.
yeah, sounds like you do the same thing. Can I ask, because I really love the eggs that are behind you, how do you craft those?
So I just use acrylic paint, and they're just layered and layered and layered. So the green ones behind me, I just start with a base coat. They're all wooden eggs that we get from a wholesaler, but people can find these wooden eggs online. Tip though, don't do that last minute. Try to order them in the fall, because if you try to order them in February, you're not going to find them because everybody else has the same idea.
Yeah.
So think ahead. I'm always thinking a season ahead. And then I'll sit by the fire all winter and paint. And it's like such a great thing to do, is to kind of think about spring when the snow is outside and the fire is going and you're painting these colorful, vibrant eggs. It's just, yeah, I just love doing it.
Yeah. And it's, I think people sort of think of crafting as like, this weird hokey granny thing these days. And to me, that's really truly what crafting is coming up with an idea, figuring out how to make it, and then spending some time to actually create these things that when they're done, I mean, they really are kind of heirloom pieces, but they really do have your personality into them. So when I was kind of came up with the idea for these foiled eggs, my inspiration was the vintage eggs from the 30s and the 40s that came from Germany, paper mache eggs. A lot of them sort of have these decoupage kind of Easter scenes on them, but they also used to do foiled ones. And I thought, okay, well, how can I reproduce this? And it actually inspired me to start looking online to find vintage ones that I can start collecting because they were so beautiful. But I just sat down, ordered some paper mache eggs in different sizes. Again, I found them online through Amazon by searching for them. And the foil is actually just confection foil. So it's candy wrappers. And you can buy them in packs of 100 in a whole range of colors. And a little bit of spray glue, and cover your table and sit there and just very carefully spray the egg, and then smooth out the foil onto them so that it's almost like using gilding with gold and silver leaf gilding. This is just foil, so it's a little, it's thicker. But I really like the way they came out.
I think
they are eggs that can last, I can use them again in the future. So
yeah, I love them. I thought they reminded me, I worked at a nursery years ago, and they reminded me of the foil they would wrap Easter plants in. We would have sheets of like either pink or blue foil, and you take the pot of tulips and you push the foil around them.
Exactly, yeah.
And I loved it. I remember using it, and they were like, the one nursery I worked at had all this vintage foil, I guess, from the 60s or 70s, and they had kind of these intricate patterns on them. They were really fun.
Yeah, oh, I love that. Yeah, usually you find like Easter lilies or azalea plants with them. So have you guys ever worked with using natural dyes for dyeing eggs?
Probably in the past. I mean, I haven't. No, not recently. No, I mean, I usually paint them with acrylics. So I use the paint. When I was a kid, maybe I did that. We used to actually use my mom used to get the paws and the different types of dyes from, the local grocery store and things.
Yeah, I'm a total paws person. I sort of love the vintageness of that. And it reminds me of being a kid, and it just sort of holds something dear to my heart. When I had my shop in Atlanta, I hosted an Easter egg coloring event, and a lot of people were interested in wanting to use natural dyes. So I really did some research and found out how to make them. And they really do create a very beautiful muted egg. It takes a little bit longer to leave the egg submerged in to get the dye color on them. I would encourage you to try it, because I think with your talent, you could create some really amazing things with them. I know you would put a lot of attention into that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people like using, I think you said you used cabbage and onion skins, and
Yeah.
all kinds of things that you can
Yeah.
use.
And blueberries, the ones that I dyed with blueberries come out really beautiful. And so I have a question here because somebody asked, how do you make the natural dyes, and in particularly the green? So the green is made with spinach, and you just boil down spinach, and at the very last minute um, before you use the dye, but after you remove the spinach, you add your vinegar. You don't want to add the vinegar when you're cooking the spinach because it will actually brown the spinach, and you don't want that to happen. So spinach is how I got the green, and I think most people wouldn't really think that this would make a blue colored egg, but the red cabbage does not turn it purple. It actually makes it blue. So it's a fun way to use different types of food to color eggs, although it can be expensive because you're literally buying this food
Just
just
to
to make
dye.
these dyes, right? So do you have, somebody's asking, do you have any other Easter traditions that you do, either you and Carter or maybe old family ones? Do you guys go down to visit your family?
Yeah, so every Easter we spend it with my mom and my sister and her kids, and my mom's about half Polish, so we always have a big Polish brunch. So we have homemade pierogies, kibasi and eggs, babka, and we just kind of hang out. Maybe we'll do an Easter egg hunt, but then we like to watch our Easter movies. So we watch Jim Henson's Bunny Picnic and the Easter Bunny's Coming to Town, and it's always just a fun day and relaxing, and it's just, yeah, that's what we do every year, and it's always the Polish brunch, and it's the best.
You know, what it sounds like to me, it's a very authentic Easter, and that's what I love about it. It speaks to your heart, and you guys do it every year.
Yeah.
Somebody has asked a question. Where can we buy your eggs? Is the best place by going to your website, hortandpott.com?
Correct.
Okay. So if you guys are interested in ordering any of Todd's eggs, or you really should peruse his website, because his cement leaves are absolutely beautiful. And I know they also sell handmade wreaths and some other vintage items on there. Go to hortandpott.com, and I believe you actually have a shop on there, right?
Yeah, we have an online shop. So we have concrete leaves, eggs. There's a few nests. I make these forage woven nests. I have a few of them. And yeah, we have some vintage. And then speaking of vintage, I loved your embroidered tablecloths. I collect them too. And
yeah.
and I like to offer them in our shop sometimes. They're so much fun, and I just love that they're handmade and somebody sat there and did it. And
it's hard to find ones that are in good condition, but I'm always scouting for them. And when I find them, I snatch them up, and you know, I love them.
And napkins, I have a thing for,
yeah, totally.
Styles. Yes,
totally. Actually, I know it's a little weird, but one of the things that I also collect is crocheted tablecloths and runners. My grandmother used to be a crocheter.
Oh, wow.
So just, the fact that somebody sat there hour after hour and made this intricate pattern of crochet tablecloths, I absolutely love them. So somebody is asking, how many layers of acrylic does it take to create a glossy egg like that?
Well, yes. So it depends on which eggs I'm working on, but it could be like I was speaking with you before. Some of these eggs I went through a whole color theme and then changed the whole color theme. So if you sanded them off, they might be purple underneath. But yes, probably like 5 or 6 layers. And then we do shellac them so they have that nice shine. And then we have wooden egg stands and we stain them. And so we really put a lot of work and time into them. And I just like that depth and kind of layer upon layer upon layer.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about crafting these, do you sort of come up with a plan ahead of time? Or is this just sort of a natural progression? Like as you're making it, you think, I'm going to do this to it, and I'm going to add this extra layer, or is this thought out before you actually sit down to do this?
Yeah, a little bit. So every year I try to do I do something different. I like to so that they do become collectible. So last year they were a little bit more shiny, like a pearlescent type eggs, and they were more blues. And every year I like to do a new collection and something that's different from the last year. So this year's is all about layers and layers and layers. And last year was more watercolory and pearlescent kind of eggs.
Mhm.
So next year I already have ideas that I want to do, and that's what I was
Okay.
experimenting on this year. And I wasn't really happy how they were coming out. So next year I'll have a different theme and different look.
Oh, I can't wait to see those.
Oh,
So somebody is asking, how do you get your inspiration, specifically during the pandemic? We're so closed in, and I mean, you really do have the benefit of living on a large piece of land and having a lot of nature around you, but where do you get your inspiration from and your creativity, and what inspires you?
I think it's just, I've been doing this since I was a kid, I guess. And, you know, my mother's very creative. She's my best friend, and she's always doing something, and we kind of bounce ideas off each other. But I'll take themes and things from, my past and reinvent them. I of course get inspiration from Instagram and love what other people are doing, and do my own takes and twists on things. But yes, and then yeah, I think that's kind
I
of.
think sometimes too, I know for me, sometimes things just come to me, and it's sort of somewhat innate, and then you sort of think, oh, I don't know why I thought of that, and then you just sort of develop upon it, and it grows into something else, and it gives you another idea, and it sort of gives you a little bit of a sense of pride to stand up back and go, wow, I really love that. I mean, when you can connect with the things that you do, it does sort of create a sense of pride too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
things just click. It could be a painting, a vintage painting I find, or an embroidered tablecloth with the certain color patterns or textures, or anything can really be inspiring. And you can run with an entire theme off of something like that, like a piece of vintage fabric. And
Yeah.
It can inspire a whole table like you, or, it can inspire rooms,
Yeah, I think for me, obviously the outdoors, I love to garden. So for me, that's really where I center myself, and do get inspired. But I also love antique shows and flea markets, and being able to roam freely around those places outdoors really just kind of fuels some type of creativity within me. And my mother, like yours, was very creative when she was younger. She was into ceramics and cross stitching, and holidays were always these big festive creative things that she did, with the exception of having paper plates and solo cups, because I don't do that. But yeah, so I grew up in a household that was somewhat like that as well. My mother did a lot of that stuff with us. So I think that sort of also helped to foster a continued interest in doing, crafty stuff like that.
Yeah, it's ingrained in you when you grow up with, when you grow
and
up with crafts in your household. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so we don't have any more questions. Oh, yes, we do. Where did you buy the eggs you covered? The eggs that I bought, really, I searched them online. I just searched for paper mache eggs. If you guys are hearing noise, I apologize. It's our lawn mowing people. But I searched for paper mache eggs on Amazon, and a lot of choices came up, but I knew I wanted to use a lot of different sizes. So rather than buying them in bulk, I bought them in smaller quantities, just in different sizes. And another question, will the dye ruin your tablecloth when dyeing eggs? Yep, it sure will. So be careful. There are ways to get out dye if it does set in. Actually, it's not the most organic method, but RIT does make a dye remover that if you do get dye on any fabrics, you can actually soak them in the dye remover, and that will get rid of any dye that does get on it. So all of these questions are literally coming in, Todd, so I'm going to throw them at you.
Oh, okay.
What kind of shellac do you use on the eggs once they're painted?
Spray shellac. You can get that at a hardware store.
Mhm.
We're not hand painting the shellac on them.
Yeah.
But yes, we sprayed them.
Yeah. Sometimes ease is better.
What? Yes.
I said sometimes ease is better.
Yes.
Where's your shop located?
Well, right now we were in Oak Hill, but we bought a piece of property in Freehold, New York. So that's about 15 minutes away. So the new place will be in Freehold.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
So
And that's
about, yeah, we'll
Albany, right?
be closer to Hudson, closer to the Thruway.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I love Hudson.
Mhm.
I haven't been there in a long, long time.
Oh, it's changed.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So this is a really good question. Karen asks, what will each of you be foraging for in nature this spring? How about you?
Well, I'm going to be going back with grapevine. So I now is the time to get grapevine if you want to do any weaving, because once they start leafing out and sending out those tendrils, they're impossible to get out of the trees. So I do all that. I just finished the nest, so now I'm going to be harvesting more to make lamps, and I make Mother's Day baskets. So that's my next is getting more vine, and I'm always kind of trying to get more vine.
I love grapevine. For me, because I live down here in Florida, it's so much harder to get all of that great natural stuff that you get up there because it's just too hot down here. So it's a little bit more subtropical. And I have actually been getting into begonias. It's a beautiful spring plant. And here in Florida, you can actually plant them outside year round, but they are in full bloom in the spring. So I have been really collecting a lot of different varieties of begonias and working with creating floral arrangements with them. So for me, that's a new thing for me. Gardening down here in Florida has become a new challenge for me to really learn about how to garden in a subtropical, because I'm so used to a New England climate. So
now, do you use flowering begonias or you're looking for foliage begonias?
both.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, both. So we have some shaded areas on our terrace that are actually, they're sort of raised planters on either side of a fountain. And it's very difficult for a lot of things to grow there, but it's just enough shade and just enough light that the begonias are thriving. So that's going to be changed into a whole area of just begonias. So
very cool.
Yeah. So I'm loving those. And you know, I used to use when I was up in New England, I used to grow them in pots in the summer and cut them and use them in a lot of my events as garnish on platters and stuff. So I'm really enjoying the extension of that in my actual garden and being able to see them every day, just sort of, you know, these long stems pendulating with all these little flowers. It's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah. This is a great question. And I should have actually asked you this. So thank you for asking this. Paige asked, where did the name Hort and Pott come from?
Oh, yeah, that's short for, so it's short for horticulture and pottery.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, when I was younger, probably in my 20s, I was very into ceramics. I did it for a long period of time, over 10 years. And and at the time I was doing garden design. So I was trying to think of a way to combine all these things that I did. And it was just horticulture and pottery. But I haven't done pottery in a few years, but at the new property, I do have a kiln, I have a wheel. I just, the horticulture part has taken over, I guess. So I'm hoping one winter I'll get back into the studio and set up on my ceramic studio and get back into the pottery part.
I love that. Well, the faux bois planters that you make are actually beautiful as well.
Yeah, it's the concrete. Yep.
Yeah. And I have a goal of learning how to throw pottery. I've always wanted to do it. I love working with my hands.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And I had plans to do it actually last spring, and COVID hit, and I just did not want to be in any type of a group class setting or anything. So hopefully come summer, I can start taking some classes here. So I'm really looking forward to that. So any tips you can share, I'll gladly take them.
Yeah, you just have to. I mean, it's with pottery, you have to stay on it. So it's about the drying times and washing your pots. And I mean, you can take a class and wrap them up and stuff like that once a week. But
yeah,
once you start, you got to stick through with it. And I've started making things, and then I'm like, well, I don't have my kiln set up, and I have to wait until I have the time to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I think we're at the end of our session, and I want to really thank you for coming on and being my guest. It really has been a pleasure because
thank you.
I have admired your site for so long, and I'm so happy to get to meet you. And again, if anybody wants to go check him out, go to his website. It's hortandpott.com. And he's also on Instagram at also Hort and Pott. If you've missed any part of the video, or if you'd like to share it with anybody, I post the videos on my account at Home with Joseph on YouTube. And Aspire Design and Home also posts them on their website. So you can go to aspiredesignandhome.com and find it there. And I am actually going to be developing a section of my website. It's a shop, and I'm actually curating collections of vintage serving pieces for entertaining. So be on the lookout for that. I'm really happy about the way it's developing, and happy to get it launched. And you can also find me at Home with Joseph on Instagram. And if we haven't answered any of your questions, please direct message me, and I will, I'll tend to them there. I'll answer any questions. And if you have any for Todd, I'll be happy to submit those to him, and I'm sure he would be glad to respond. But thanks for joining, everybody, and happy Easter. And I hope you guys got a lot of creative ideas out of this. And thank you, Todd.
Thanks, Joseph.
Have a great one.
You too.